Welcome to Blender add-on development for beginners. In this module, we revisit the render done add-on we developed in the previous module and refactor it to a multi-file add-on. We will also have a look at how we can show custom icons when we add an operator to a menu or panel. We look at those custom icons in detail in the next video, but in this video we focus on multi-file add-ons. Why would you want to split up an add-on into multiple files? Well, sometimes you need it, for example, to include those custom icons as they are best stored as separate files. But there are other benefits as well, like reusability. Some code might be useful in other add-ons, and you may want to keep that code separate so that you can include it in any add-on that needs it. Also, code maintenance may benefit from smaller files. Separate, smaller files are easier to test and also easier to understand for people that look at them. And that might be you 6 months later when trying to fix a bug. An extra benefit might be that you can keep some development documentation alongside your code, like a README or a diagram. There are also some challenges though. If an add-on is not a single file, it needs to be packaged as a zip file, although this is a relatively easy step, of course. A bigger challenge is keeping all your imports in order. Python doesn't like circular imports, and if you structure your add-on into lots of smaller interdependent add-ons, preventing this might prove difficult. If you have to work with multiple files, you can still use Blender's built-in editor, of course, but here a proper IDE like VS Code or PyCharm is really helpful. Check out the video in the link above for more on that. Let's see how we can restructure the render done add-on. Instead of a single file, we need a directory, and in this directory we keep several files that contain the code for bits of related functionality. The init file will contain the main add-on registration code, while the other files focus on specific parts of the add-on, like the email functions, the handlers, the user preferences, and so on. We also have a subdirectory for the custom icons we will create in the next video, and this directory will contain any SVG files that define those custom icons. Now the functionality is interrelated, as mentioned before, and we need to avoid any circular dependencies. So a module can only import another module if that other module does not in turn import the module it was imported by, either directly or indirectly. And because the render done add-on is a non-trivial example consisting of lots of parts, let's see how we have organized this. The top level init file imports all modules, and most of these modules refer to some of those other modules as well. For example, the preferences module imports operators because there the verify email server operator is defined. And it also imports mail so that it can use the function that checks if an email address is valid in the text properties that need this. And it also needs the utils modules for some common helper functions. So does the handlers module, which also needs the mail module because one of the handlers will send email, just like the operators module, which needs the mail verification function. It also needs utils, which even the mail module needs. So this may look pretty complicated, but if you look closely, there are no loops. None of the arrows loops back, not even the longest. So init includes preferences, which includes operators, which in turn includes mail, which finally includes utils, but it never goes back. And although we are now rewriting an add-on that we developed earlier, this would mean that were we writing it from scratch, we could develop and test from the bottom up. First the utils module, then the email module, etc. until we tie everything together in the init file. Let's have a quick look at the init file first. We are not going into great detail here, but at the beginning we import all that we need from the other modules. Then we define the blinfo dict just like before, and we create a tuple of classes that need to be registered. The register function is largely the same, except for loading custom icons, something we will cover in the next video. And the lines where we define password and connection status as properties in the window manager. Previously we used global variables for that, but when working with multiple modules that becomes a bit difficult to manage. And because Blender's window manager is an object we have access to from anywhere in our add-on code, it is a logical choice to store some information that we need everywhere, with for the password variable the same benefit of leaving no trace when Blender ends. The final bit of code in the unregister function deallocates any thumbnails our load icons function may have created. Arguably it should be defined elsewhere, but because it's just a few lines of code I kept it in, and the next video will cover this part in more detail. So in the end, the init file is pretty bare. It only identifies this package as an add-on and registers whatever needs registering. The utils module defines a few functions used in almost all other modules. The first one is getPackageName. Remember that we need a unique name so that we can refer to the add-on preferences from anywhere in the code. Previously, we used the built-in Python constant name name for that, but that won't work if we have a package consisting of multiple files. Now we could have defined a string constant here, but then we would have to change that for every new add-on we develop. This function is reusable and uses Python's built-in package constant. If we are anywhere inside a package, so not inside a single standalone file, this constant will contain something. Packages also may contain sub-packages and their names will be separated by dots, so we simply take the first one after the split. What might be in the package constant in the most general case is a bit more complicated than this, but this will suffice for what we need. The read password function is next and shows how to use the getPackageName function to access the preferences. We get the file name where the password is stored and then store the result, not in a global variable, but in a property of the Blender window manager. The read first line function hasn't changed at all, and the load icons function is something we will discuss in the next video. The mail module contains all the mail related stuff, like the regular expression we use to define a valid email address and the function to check it. The verify SMTP server function has been adapted to not use those global variables for password and connection status, but refer to properties in Blender's window manager instead. It also uses the getPackageName utility function to get a reference to the add-on preferences. The send SMTP message function has been adapted in a similar way. The handlers module is where we put all the handler code. And again, we import the read password function from the utils module and the send SMTP message function from the mail module, because we use those in some of the handlers. Other than that, the code for the handlers is pretty much unchanged. The operators module follows the same pattern and includes what we need from the utils and mail modules. The verify server operator has also been updated to make use of the connection status property in the window manager instead of a global variable. And finally, the preferences module is where we have to put everything related to add-on preferences and its preset functionality. Same idea, we import what we need from the relevant modules and adapt some of the code to do away with global variables and use properties we defined on the window manager instead, like in the reset status function. The preset panel and preset menu haven't changed much really, and the add my preset operator not at all. You may wonder why I didn't put this operator in the operators module, but since this one is closely related to the preset functionality, I found this the more logical place. The changes in the actual add-on preferences are mainly in its draw method. The first change is because we want to add a custom icon, something we will discuss in detail in the next video, and the second change is because the password loaded and connection status variables are now properties of the window manager, but other than that, the code is largely identical. It would be awkward to distribute all those files separately, so the last thing we need to do is combine all these files into a single zip file. If you are using a shell, it is as simply as calling zip with the -r option. You need the R option to recurse into any subdirectories. If you are on Windows or using a graphical browser like Dolphin, you may have an option to right-click the directory and select something like compress to archive or similar. With the zip file created, you or any user can install the add-on in the usual way from the add-ons section in the preferences. So what did we gain with this reshuffle? Well, we put all related functionality into separate files. This makes it a little bit easier to understand the code, especially when the add-on gets more complex. Nobody likes to read thousands of lines of code to fix a bug, even when you wrote it yourself. It also created opportunities for reuse, like with the utils module. And even though we don't show it here, this also opens up the way to automated testing, at least for the non-interactive parts of the code. I have written some blog posts about this if you are interested, but that is a bit more involved and perhaps not necessary for a small add-on. Finally, a multi-file add-on allows us to include all kinds of other files, like custom icons, so that we can distribute a single zip file to our users, making installation for them just as easy as a single file add-on. We have a look at those custom icons in the next video, so thank you for watching and see you in the next one.